break, we told you Myanmar's military junta has defended its actions with the execution of the 4 activists in Myanmar yesterday. The government announced that the 4 activists had been executed following their accusations and the trial of them for terror charges. According to a government spokesperson, the men were given due process and insisted those executed were not democracy activists, but were killers deserving their punishment. So to declare exactly when the executions happened, but family members did approach the prison yesterday to retrieve the bodies of their loved ones. Let's bring in lawyer and foreign affairs commentator Chukwemeka Eze, who joins us now from London. Chukwemeka, I'm glad we could reconnect with you. What do you make of the Myanmar junta's reaction to the global condemnation and, the execution itself, the defense of the execution of those activists?
The reaction was expected, but it falls short of the international standard for human rights. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They've attained the level of jus cogens under Article 53 of the Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties. These human rights covenants, conventions, have attained a level that the level of customary international law, that all countries of the world, whether they are parties to those conventions, declarations or not, they are bound by it. The Myanmar trial falls short of it. And no matter the defense given by the regime, it will be seen by the United Nations as arbitrary execution of the 4 democracy activists. That's the position.
You just mentioned the international community and, how the executions contravene many of the conventions, many of international conventions. But then what can countries do about this? What can international organizations do about this?
Definitely the United Nations has they have a committee, the United Nations Human Rights Council, which is a product of the United Nations Human Rights Commission. I think they are going to look into it. They have a committee on arbitrary executions and a rapporteur on this, I believe, will be appointed. As we speak now, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, the 10-member association, they started speaking. Hun Sen, the Cambodian Prime Minister, has condemned it, which is not usually the case for Asian countries in the past. Malaysia has condemned it, and within a week, there's going to be a meeting of the Asian Asian Association, and certainly they are going to condemn it. And when they condemn it, United Nations condemn it, there will be greater pressure on Myanmar concerning this abuse of human rights.
The U.S. wants China to intervene, but China, of course, we know, hardly interferes or intervenes in any country's domestic affairs. But if they chose, however, what sort of influence could they have on Myanmar?
Yes, if China chooses, China may withdraw its support for the Myanmar government because the biggest supporter of that government is China, and China has a veto power in the Security Council. It means that any resolution concerning this action or any action involving Myanmar will not pass through without the cooperation of China, Russia, France, United Kingdom, and their 5th member. So certainly China will veto it, and that's why U.S. has to appeal to China, because China has been giving 100% support to Myanmar. So the threat by China that we will withdraw, we will not exercise our veto power, will be sufficient to send a signal to the military junta in Myanmar. So China has a lot of role to play concerning Myanmar.
Now, apparently, the junta will be in power for a long time, the way they're going about this. Have we seen the last of democracy in Myanmar?
Certainly, democracy in Myanmar has suffered. I don't want to say irredeemably, But with the recent, with the coup of February 2021 and suppression of democracy activists after years of doing it before, I think the military junta, they are not in a hurry to back off. So democracy in Myanmar in the next 5 to 10 years, even if it is realizable, it will not be the real democracy. So I don't see the military junta leaving the government, leaving holding of power. Even when Aung San Suu Kyi was there as the leader, the military was still exercising their power. So not to talk of now that they are fully in charge. They were out of power. They saw how they lost out in the power game, and power is so sweet, they are not in a hurry to go. So certainly democracy has suffered, if not in the long term, surely in the middle term. In the short term, there won't be democracy in Myanmar, certainly.
Yeah, and those protests, the anti-junta protests, have gone on for almost a year now since the military junta took over power. We also saw protests in Sri Lanka, which caused President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to eventually flee. You think that protests could have any impact on the government currently in power in Myanmar?
Certainly, it will have impact because the government, before this government left, they never thought this would happen. It has been a game of musical chairs. You take power, later you give to your brother. So the same family, the same kindred have been circulating power, relying on their defeat of the Tamil Tigers earlier, some years ago, basking on the euphoria of winning that civil war. They thought they would be in leadership in Sri Lanka forever. But times have changed. The people's power has chased them away. And I think definitely it has rewritten the history of democracy in Sri Lanka. But as they say that the more things seem to change, the more they remain the same. Let's see how it plays out, because the mafia in power in Sri Lanka, they are not in a hurry to go. That's why the former prime minister has now been elected or selected or appointed to be the president. So I think to a large extent, it will be continuation of the previous regime's policies. But definitely they've seen the anger of the people, the power of the people. If the current and the new president continues, definitely he will experience, the people will not back down so easily. They've seen the people's power, and they will not let it go as simple, as easy as many may think. So I see democracy thriving in Sri Lanka after this jigsaw, after this experience by the powers that be, and the fleeing of the former president, Rajapaksa.
Oh, yeah, and that might also be replicated in Myanmar as well. Chukwemeka Eze, thank you so much for speaking with me on The World Today.
Thank you very much.